Joel Brennan joined us in studio. You had kind of a sour face as I was going through that forecast. You didn't seem interested in it.
No, it just seems like the change of season is upon us. And yeah, that's not hard. And today is actually a nice mild day out there, but it's getting worse.
And tomorrow's going to be nice, but then you bring in Saturday a mix. Why do we have to start with a mix, Mother
The wintry
Nature?
mix. Like whenever you guys say wintry mix, so the rest of us are like, ooh, that's
Shiver.
not good.
No, just sloppy. That's all that is. Hey, let's talk development here. University Club's being transformed into a 35-room luxury boutique hotel. Northwestern Mutual is behind it. They seem to be doing very well for what it's worth. Things are going well for that company. Walk us through the calculus behind the project, though.
Well, this is really, as you say, the NM is doing well, and they've made over the last 10 years $1.5 billion investment in and around Milwaukee. Their new headquarters. We've seen the development of a building that has been on their campus that they kind of took all the cladding off, and now they've recladded it to make it look like the other building. And this is just kind of a continuation of that. The University Club fell on hard times. It closed a little less than 2 years ago, and like. We know it. The Greater Milwaukee Committee has known the University Club for a long time. We used to hold all of our monthly meetings there. So it's a grand dame of Milwaukee, and Northwestern Mutual purchased it, and now they've just announced that they're redoing this into a 40-room luxury boutique hotel. They're going to add one story on, I think, to the back of the building, not to the historic facade that we all know at the end of Wells Street there. And I'm sure it'll be used by clients and partners of Northwestern Mutual, but also, just be another asset in the community and just another example of how they invest in their hometown, and that the rest of us really benefit from that.
I always love boutique hotels, but I'll be honest, I did see this and say, oh, okay, another one. And I happen to live in the area as well. But why is this project meaningful?
Oh, well, I think it's a rebirth story. The University Club had been around for a long time. They had connected up with the golf course and had tried that. And really, it came to a point where they could no longer operate the City Club of the University Club. Northwestern Mutual stepped in. And I think it's like for lots of things we talk about in this community, a project that had a life of one kind for a long period of time. Now there will be something new associated with it. Those of us who are familiar with the University Club and what it has meant over the course of time and what we did with meetings there or other things that we did, convenings that were part of that. Now we have a chance to, if somebody's coming to town and we want to share a little slice of Milwaukee history, but also kind of where we are, I think that is why this is meaningful. It's not going to solve the hotel challenges in our community. And, there's another 40-room hotel that's opening potentially down the street from there, like another 70 rooms in Milwaukee's hotel portfolio, not going to change things materially. But it's another asset for us to have. And there isn't a much lovelier setting than, if you remember being on top, I think it's the sixth or the seventh floor of the University Club. It looks out over Lake Michigan, and it really is kind of one of the grand spaces. And I'm sure they will highlight that. And everything that Northwestern Mutual does, none of us in the community can question that it will be absolutely top-notch, and it adds to who we are as a community and elevates us in the community. So another good story for a building that has sat pretty much vacant, and we all were kind of wondering what was going to go on there over the last couple of years.
Well, speaking of buildings that have been around quite a long time here, the High Life Theater, Miller High Life Theater, Panthers Arena, Wisconsin Center District, exploring the long-term viability. Meanwhile, Alderman Bob Bauman saying, hey, hold up a second here. Historic designation is what I'm seeking to make it much more complicated to tear these venues down. I understand both sides of this. How much money do you want to contribute to something that might be a losing venture? Panthers Arena, they've had some upgrades, but there's no suites there. But you have long-term tenants. High Life Theater's been around for over 100 years, 4,500-person venue. There's another venue of similar size being built in the Deer District. So I get all sides of this thing because these are historic buildings, but what does the crystal ball of Joel Brennan say with regard to these venues?
Not sure, but let's start with just a little history lesson. Teddy Roosevelt was shot in Milwaukee, and he was shot on his way to give a speech at the Milwaukee Auditorium, which is now what the theater is. And I would tell you that the Greater Milwaukee Committee, when it came to being in the late 1940s, there was a list of projects that were kind of the first things that this organization wanted to do. One of the first things on that list was a downtown venue for a basketball team. So the Mecca, now what has become Panther Arena, all those things, like that's the history that these are steeped in. So the notion of them being historic buildings, like from what it means to the community, absolutely. I think what has happened is the Baird Center, as we all know, we're 1 year plus into the opening of that terrific facility and what that means. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening around the convention center now. So the Public Museum will be vacating the space that it has occupied for the last 50, 60 years. The state office building that's located at 6th and Wells, at some point, the state will vacate that. And so that opens up opportunities there. And what the Wisconsin Center District has done is, over the last several months, had a consultant come to town based in Chicago and look at all of this stuff that's around the convention center and what else could we be doing. We said 70 additional rooms is not going to be that meaningful for the hotel portfolio here. 1,000-room convention hotel is something that lots of people have talked about for a long time. So that's part of the discussion here. I think what happened is this week the Historic Preservation Commission had unanimously supported these historic designations. There still is the step of going to the Common Council for approval there. I don't know. I can't read the tea leaves of where they're going on that. I think it's in this case, might be a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, because there really isn't a redevelopment plan of what was going to go on in these two spaces. There have been community conversations, and I think, as we've talked about before, that's really important. That's what we should be doing. But I think the downtown aldermen, and there are tenants in those buildings. The Admirals are still inside Panther Arena. UWM plays their basketball there. So there are real questions about that. But I think rushing out to do the historic district on this, might be a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, because I don't know that there's really a good idea of what we're going to do. And it is a really important community conversation to look at, hey, we made this $500 million investment in the convention center. We know that is hugely valuable. We have these other things that are happening around it. What's the best way for the community to move forward and protect those investments, but also, get the real benefit or the long-term benefit of what happens when you make these kind of thoughtful, intentional investments?
We got word this week that the new live music hall, the Argo, is going to open on December 5th. And for a moment, I was like, okay, which one is the Argo? Because we've been talking about so many new live music venues, which is great news for Milwaukee. But this is the one in Whitefish Bay that's going in the old Fox Bay Theater. And I feel like this is so special for two reasons. Number one, because you don't really think about Whitefish Bay as having a live music venue. And two, that we can actually do something with that old theater.
Yeah, and I grew up. We used to take our kids to Fox Bay. It was a wonderful place to sit down, and and I think it was a casualty of COVID that that it never was able to reopen there. And I do think, like, one of the things about this is it's just kind of an expression of how the Milwaukee area has elevated itself in the music business over the last 20 or 25 years. I give great credit to Gary Witt and the folks and his partner Matt Berenger and the people at the Pabst Theater Group. Like, they have taken this and exploded what Milwaukee is on the music scene, even to the extent that now we have a suburban property that's located right in the heart of a residential area in Whitefish Bay. And I think what they're promoting is it's going to be a music venue, but they are also, they'll do weddings there. I think they can have a capacity of up to 700, and it's a great thing in the kind of that business district in Whitefish Bay that will add to it, and I think that it just is an expression of kind of how we've elevated things. In early 2026, the new venue is going to open in the Deer District, right. And it just announced the naming rights there, and so that's going to bring another 250,000 people to view music here. But just the elevation of that scene. There were 2 weekends ago. They closed down Wisconsin Avenue for a couple of days because Widespread Panic was here at the Riverside Theater. And they've done this now for several years in a row. Whenever Widespread Panic is on the road, they come to Milwaukee and they have this. And people come from all over to see this. Like, this is where we have become as a music destination. And it's only because of, people who are visionaries in music. There are lots of people who are able to capture it now and build on that success. But there were people, Mike Cudahy, who bought the Pabst Theater for $1 from the city. Like, those are the people who started where we are now. And it's great to see how we have grown and where we're going with this.
And the Guffs are going to play opening night, and that just made me smile.
That's well, I think that's their hit, isn't it? Smile.
I know. You see what I did
Absolutely,
there?
it is very nice. Yeah, it's a flashback to Bastille days back in the mid '90s for the Guffs. That's where I go back to it. Talk about historic. My goodness. Joel Brennan, the president of the Greater Milwaukee Committee. Always great perspective, Joel. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Joel.
guys, for having me.